ways. You know, service to the Guru means service on different levels. And so tonight, myself, Ekavira Prabhu, and Kishore Rani, we're here. We're your team tonight that's bringing you our dear friend and a really dear disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Her name is Citi-Sakti, and she's been serving Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj for many, many years. She serves him, and she's actually started serving him in England. And that was, at least as far as I remember, more than almost like 20 years, 15 years, something like that, 15 years. And she is by profession a psychologist. She's a doctor by profession, psychologist. And she has
psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist. Yeah. Okay, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. This is so good. Psychiatrist. And I wrote it down. Psychiatrist. Because that psychiatrist is a doctor, and a psychologist is also someone that is a therapist. So yes, the distinction with Citi-Sakti is she can give you medication. That's a distinction. That's what I always remember. Anyway, Citi-Sakti, she's, you know, I'm going to let her share herself about some of the services that she has done with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. But somehow for me, one of the ways that she maintains a very dear and sacred space in my heart is because of the service that she did when Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was leaving his body, because she came all the way from England to assist us here to serve Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And that was a very beautiful and special time. And we're really indebted to her for, you know, just making herself available like that. Very selfless service. So Citi-Sakti, welcome. Please share with us.
Thanks so much, Hare Krishna. Basin says, my gosh. See, now I don't normally feel nervous on stuff like this. Now I feel nervous because I'm sitting with you guys. I'm thinking that my pastimes are going to pale in comparison to yours. You've had so much, you know, loving service with Gurudev, both of you. So I'm sitting here thinking, really, can I say anything that you guys have already not experienced or said? But, you know, by your mercy, hopefully I can share something. So, yeah, I mean, I just, you know, I met Gurudev first back in 1999. And I was in my last couple of years of my medical degree. And we were doing, you know, university preaching in the UK was kind of really warming up then. And we had a intercollegiate festival. And I was still fairly new. And I'd only been practicing a couple of years. And I'd been practicing in a way that, you know, it was fun for me. You know, I loved Kirtan, I loved Prashad. You know, I was like a typical university student. I just enjoyed the company of, you know, young devotees and stuff. So it was all fun. And I still remember a few weeks before I met Gurudev, a good friend of mine asked me, do you think you'll meet your spiritual master in this lifetime? And I said, nah, I don't even listen to myself. You know, I can't see myself surrendering to somebody, especially not somebody else. And literally after that conversation, I think we started having preparations for this big festival we were having at the university. So all the students from the different societies had been invited, and we had special guest speakers. Now, I was so new, even being of Indian origin, I struggled with the names of the sannyasis and things like that. And, you know, I had this code because I'm still young and new. Basically, if they're old and in saffron, you pay obeisances to them. And if they're young and in saffron, you stay away from them. That's my code. And so I was the host for this event. I was the MC. And, you know, again, I was struggling with the names. So we had this meeting. And, you know, for me, I was just like, right, I need to lock down the names and background information about, you know, our different speakers, etc. And Swami Gurudev was coming. And, you know, I'd been hearing all this buzz about Spiritual Warrior 2 and what an amazing preacher he was, but I'd never seen him. I'd never heard of him in terms of like really got to know his teachings at that point. But after that meeting, you know, something really stirred in my heart. And after that, very soon, and as the day was approaching, this excitement was really building in my heart. And I remember, you know, I was getting more and more service for him. Like I had to write an article for a newspaper about him coming as a speaker to the event. It was just amazing. The more I heard about him, it was just unusual. You know, even part of me was going to go, am I just, you know, thinking this person might be my guru just because I'm kind of like, yeah, he's from Prince and blah, blah. So, no, but no, it's not that, because that didn't really, you know, Princeton's in America, it's not here, it doesn't, you know, carry the same kind of weight, right? So no, there must be something, there's something, you know, it was really strong feeling. And I still remember the day before the festival, like literally my heart felt like it was going to burst. And what's interesting is, you know, even though I was so kind of like raw and barely knew who to pay obeisance to, I still remember I must have been about 20, 21. And I was talking to my little sister, who was only 16 at the time, and she'd come as a guest, and she was in the audience, and we were just about to start. Marge hadn't yet arrived, and I was talking to her, and she was saying, oh, so who's coming? And I was telling her, and then all of a sudden, I just felt this pull, and I just turned around and I just paid obeisances. I just hit the ground. I didn't know who I was paying obeisances to or why. I just felt something, and I just turned around and paid obeisance. I looked up, and it was him. That's it. So that was it. I just felt like, Gurudev, this is it. This is whatever spiritual master means. I have found my spiritual master. And then the more he spoke, the more I heard from him, you know, because I was being really attentive to everything he was saying, because he was just so, what I really got from him was, he was really dynamic, he was really powerful, he was really real. Like the way he was explaining Krishna consciousness was like somebody who'd lived, even though he was in saffron cloth, even though he was a renunciate. And he was so wise, he wasn't even connected with the world. And so I could really hear that, but on top of all of that, it was combined with profound love. You could really feel it. I mean, that Tirtha at the end of that festival was amazing. I mean, that's one thing Gurudev's really famous for, right? Especially here in England, when you come on the Pandasena trips with our youth group. You know, everybody, even now, you know, even though it's been 15 years since he passed, they still remember, everybody remembers how he would outdance all of us, even though we were like half his age, and he would outsing all of us. And I remember this one particular Harinam that he did with us when he came to one of our trips to Italy. It was boiling hot. It was like, I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but it was in the 30s in terms of Celsius. I think that's like 90, somewhere between 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Honestly, literally, Gurudev was like dancing and running through the streets of Venice on Harinam. I think we all lasted about 10, 15 minutes. After that, we were just running to catch up. forget the dance moves. We were just running to catch up. So he was really dynamic. So that was the first time I met him. And for me, basically, over the next few days then, because I really just decided that's it. For me now, Krishna consciousness has taken on a completely different meaning, that it's now time to commit. And then over just the next 2-3 months, I just got more and more service. And you know, different things started off first with secretarial, then he started coming and staying when he would come, then I'd drive him around, cooking, so different things. But it was just, for me, that's when my spiritual life really began. And within a short time, I felt like somehow by his mercy, I was carried to commit. You know, this young little girl who's just like, yeah, I'm just having fun in Krishna consciousness, and, you know, I love prasad and I love dancing, is now like, you know, chanting 16 rounds and, you know, looking at initiation and, you know, thinking about the future. And this is the thing, it's like he was so wonderful at empowering us and making us feel like it doesn't matter what strengths, vulnerabilities, whatever body you're in, everybody's got something they can offer to Krishna. Everyone, there's a path for everybody. And he was so expert at knowing what was right for each person. I remember one of the first few times that he visited, he was giving a talk to us, and he was, you know, just talking to a group of us, and he was speaking about how if we had only 24 hours to live, what would we do with that time? And I thought to myself, you know, that's in his leadership book, right? He speaks about this mentality of, if I had 24 hours to live, how would I spend that time? You know, me and my like puffed up immaturity, I was like, yeah, I'd just like leave everything and like join the temple. So this is now after I've qualified and stuff. And he'd given me an instruction on the day that I qualified. He said, okay, so now you're a doctor. He goes, but remember, you're a doctor of the body, the mind, and the soul. So always remember this and keep them together. So I took his instruction seriously, but not so seriously that when he said you've got 24 hours to live, that I really incorporated that. I just blurted out thinking that I would get some, you know, glorification or appreciation from it. Yeah, I just drop everything and move into the temple. I got smashed, like literally. Chiti-Sakti, no, it wasn't Chiti-Sakti then. Chetna! I said, Chetna, you know, he said, you can be in the temple and just be in Maya, complete Maya. he said, you're in a job where the Bhagavad Gita unfolds every single day, and you get out there on the battlefield and you serve. I said, okay. And you know what? At that point, I was actually just grappling with working 100 hours a week. And, you know, it was nice that Gurudev would come and stay in the doctor's accommodation. That's one of the things that would keep us going. He was so humble. But it was also, I was thinking, you know, there was still a part of me that was thinking, you know, is this just kind of like just to keep me going for now? Can I really surrender through this? But once he kind of smashed me, it really struck me. And I thought, actually, let me just surrender to this instruction. Just get out there on the battlefield, use your job as your service. Because there is so much unfoldment, right? There's death, disease, there's realization, there's selfless service, there's opportunities all the time. And I just very quickly realized that when we take shelter of the spiritual master's instruction, really wholeheartedly, even if we have kind of fears or concerns or even intellectual doubts ourselves, those get kind of transformed, and you start getting, I really started seeing Krishna's devotees coming through more and more in my work. And so then, you know, over the years, he gave me various instructions, but they were all around somehow or another to use what I was doing in medicine, what I was doing clinically as a way to serve devotees, but also to use this knowledge that we have of Krishna consciousness and be able to reach people using this language of the mind, and just finding, you know, different ways to do it. And he was such an amazing example of it. It was very easy to, it was much easier to do because he was already doing it. Do you see what I mean? It's one thing being given an instruction and you're doing something very different to, you know, the guru who's instructed you. But when the guru has instructed you and he's already an example, a complete example, both internally and in terms of the way he does things, for you to go, okay, well, here's someone I can really just model, follow in the footsteps of, be inspired by, and I know that he's always got my back. So yeah, he's a force of love, and just honestly, I don't think there was even a moment that I ever felt like there was the word impossible in Krishna consciousness. He always made me feel like anything's possible for Krishna, and it doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, anyone can do anything for Krishna.
Wow, that's so much inspiration from what you just shared, because, you know, in many cases, just in general, people don't have much confidence, and especially when we think we're in a woman's body, we really don't, you know, have confidence. And that was the thing, as you're sharing about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, our Gurudev, is that he was able to inspire us beyond our bodies. And I was a little curious because I know in the UK, he encouraged you in your profession for sure. I also know he encouraged you to take on more responsibilities in terms of making sure the devotee meetings would go on every month, which was very, really important to him, that disciples meet every month. And he also gave you a lot of responsibilities with his books. So I'm wondering if there's any stories that you could share with us, any pastime specifically related to him, the devotees, caring for the devotees, and also caring for his books.
So maybe with the disciple meetings, what I could share is, it's interesting because next Saturday we're having a disciple meeting here, which we're going to actually open up on Zoom to a whole global family. Chandramani Maharaj is going to do it with us. But I was just thinking, we were discussing in our last disciple meeting, we've been having disciple meetings here every month for 21 years now, right? So yes. And I remember when he first was encouraging us, and we don't have a big God family here, but we're fortunate that we're not too far away from each other. We're generally within the same age bracket, give or take 10 years, you know, we have means and facilities to get to each other, and we have devotee association. But I still remember very clearly when he was encouraging us to have these meetings, often we would just have 2 or 3 of us coming, right? And in the beginning, Gurudev encouraged us. He said, you know, it's quality that counts, not quantity. But then it got to a point, there was this one year, I think it was 2001, the year that we got initiated. He came a few times that year, backwards and forwards. And so he started noticing that and I would send him a report every month of who attended, what we discussed, what we read. And I think it was just before, it was Karthik actually. So he'd been a few times and he'd noticed whenever he was there, everybody would come, right? And when he wasn't there, he started noticing, oh, hang on, when I'm not there, why do the numbers drop? And this one particular time, so it was just Karthik, I was about to go to India. I was about to have my first yatra with Radha Maharaj. So I was really excited. And we'd had a disciple meeting. I sent off the report literally like a few hours before I flew. When I got to Vrindavan, the first thing I did was check my emails, because just to see what Gurudev's response was, because he always gave feedback on the report. And oh my gosh, I think I almost fell off my chair when I read the first sentence of his email. He opened with, "You're all disgusting," or "You all disgust me." The word disgust just made me just literally, well, you know, I was like, what? And you know, I'm smiling now, but I tell you, I was devastated. I was like, disgust. The word disgust is the opening like sentence. After giving his blessings, he says he's disgust. And then he just basically really actually firmly, but there was a lot of love in there, because his intention was, so he was so forward thinking. He said, you know, the essence of that letter, and I might share it in the group really, is that he was saying, you know, it's so important for us to meet, because when the spiritual master goes, it's our relationships with each other that keep us going. And also even when the spiritual master's on the planet, we don't always have the guru's physical association, you know. And even then, even when we do, our mind gets in the way, the ego gets in the way, and we don't always absorb everything that we can. So he was really strong on us being together regularly as a family, both for the current period, but for forever, really, because, you know, this principle of look around, those who you're serving with now will very well be the people you may leave your body with. Right? Yeah. So these are lifelong relationships. So he was really emphasizing that. And then he emphasized the point that, you know, if you're just coming when I'm there, that's nothing more than hero worship. That's not, you know, surrendering to the guru's instructions. And then he closed with, if I don't see any improvement, he goes, and oh no, actually he said, until I see improvement, I'm going to avoid coming to London. I'm going to avoid coming to the UK. I'm going to make sure Citi-Sakti books my ticket so that they avoid London. I was reading that going, oh my God, seriously. I was like, what? You know, and then I thought, okay, do you know what? This isn't about how I feel or how the 2 or 3 other devotees who come regularly feel. This is about, he's looking after us as a God family. And I remember him saying in a separate conversation around that similar time, he said, you know, it's wonderful if someone is an excellent disciple or a good disciple. He said, but it's even more wonderful if everybody's excellent and everybody's good. So sometimes we have to park our desires and our own progress or desire for association to assist the rest of, you know, our siblings and our God family. So yeah, he stuck to it. He didn't come back to the UK until the numbers improved. It worked though. It worked, right? You know, I mean, we've kept going even after he left. We just didn't stop, because it was just, this is the thing with, you know, I know the Guru takes, and Guru Maharaj talks about this, that there's so many different ways that the Guru chastises. I remember he gave a class in Ireland once where he was talking about how the 3 major ways the Guru chastises, the most common way is with consciousness, where literally, because in our mind we have so much offense and so many anarthas, that, and then the Guru is there with their purity, that when we come in front of them, we may feel uncomfortable, because the last thing the police wants to see, the criminal wants to see is the police. So the last thing, the nonsense in our ego and mind wants to see is the purity of the Guru. So that's the most common way. And then the second way, he says, is through dreams. And I'm sure lots of devotees have shared their experiences of Guru Maharaj's dreams and having dreams of Gurudev, how, you know, present he was. And it was literally like having him physically present. But then he talked about actual chastisement. And, you know, he made some points about actual chastisement, that he would only do that if, firstly, he felt that the disciple or disciples were ready to hear it. And secondly, if there were support structures in place for them to be able to follow through on that chastisement. And that they understood the chastisement. And this is a theme that kept recurring. Sadly for me, I got chastised a lot, as you guys know, especially in the end, you know, but I had you guys around. I had, you know, our whole caregivers team. So in terms of the disciple meetings, I think that, you know, he knew, he saw that what we had were the beginnings of something that could go on and have longevity, but he knew that the time was right now when he had to be heavy. And he compared us to other disciples in Eastern Europe. He said they have to go hungry for 3 days to save enough money to buy my books. You guys in England have everything. You're right near the temple. You're close to each other in age. You have everything you need. You have got so much, and still you don't bother to meet. So he was quite upset in this email. It wasn't just a chastisement, but he was actually, he wasn't very happy with us. So that's on the disciple meeting side. And the books, there's just, I mean, even now, books just enjoy, his books fly out. Because there's so many devotees here, particularly, you know, my experience has been with university students or any new devotees who you just have to talk about Gurudev and start relating. I mean, we have a spiritual warrior book club. It's like a study group here. And I do it at my place like every other Saturday. And it's a mixed group. It's like people who are completely brand new, right up through to devotees who've been around for a long time. We study different books of Gurudev's. And you know, most of these devotees, I think 99% have never met him. But literally, they hang on every word and every pastime about Gurudev, and they dream about him. You know, it's just, he's so powerful. When he said, I'm going to find more ways after I leave to reach all of you, they're living it. It's amazing. When we have Vyas Puja and disappearance programs, and they're there, you know, we're there, you know, and a handful of us who've kind of had personal association and we share our pastimes. Like these devotees were like sharing their realizations and experiences through dreams and realizations through his books and how it's had an impact on his life. And they're weeping. And it's so inspiring for us. And not just inspiring, it's humbling. Like, you know, somebody who never physically met Gurudev is so sincere that they can take so much shelter that literally they're empowered, quite literally by the power of that surrender and shelter. But yeah, just a couple of things. Look, I can talk for hours, you know me.
I know, this is so beautiful. It's so wonderful. Yes, actually Kishore, who is our production administrator, she does our all of the social programs, all of the programs that's online. And she just started a course on Spiritual Warrior 4, and there are 200 devotees registered, and they're all new. And she was just sharing that with me yesterday, that they're all so excited. And, you know, she gave them a couple of videos, and they, you know what, the feedback she's getting from them is just so much love and appreciation, you know, for this personality that's touching so many people's lives, like you said, after he's gone. So that's the key, after he's gone. And so I wanted to see if you can share a pastime with him during that departure time. Usually that's kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
During that departure time, you know what? For me, the way I reflect on that departure time is that he, I guess, you know, there's so many ways to look at this, but maybe because this is a kind of a personal memory sharing, I think one of the realizations I had serving him, particularly at that time, was that our relationship with the Guru is so much about serving the instruction and rather than the physicality. Because there were times at that time, literally, I could be standing next to him, but if my consciousness was not present, it felt like I was on the other side of the planet. And there were other times when and I remembered at that time that, hang on, sometimes when I'm in England and I'm serving him, it feels like literally he's standing next to me, you know, right there with me. So even though, you know, we were with him for months, 24/7, that was the key thing that I took away, that actually it was the service and the sincerity in the heart to try and follow his instruction, especially when it's most difficult to, when we can, that's been my experience, when we really, you know, when I really felt his presence. Because sometimes I'd be in that house and I would feel a million miles away because my ego was not vibing with, you know, what he wanted. But when it was, even when I was a million miles away, you know, felt very, very close. And I'm sure you had, you know, many experiences you know, that you had like that with him. But no, I wanted to share just in terms of that last, I know, 5-6 months. For me, it was like a spicy sandwich. It's like, you know, when I first came, I still remember it was like, I thought to myself, right, I'm going to go there and I'm going to stay as long as I need to stay. And I won't leave until either he leaves or he tells me to go. Okay. And as in, like, he's telling me to go because he's actually staying. Because when I first arrived, it wasn't 100%, right, that Gurudev was leaving. That kind of transpired later. So my mood when I arrived was very much, you know what, just in case this is the last time I have to serve him, I do want to go through, and it doesn't matter how painful it is, I would like to, and I prayed a lot for this, please put me through whatever purification I need to go through. And it was interesting because I asked him this the first day that I got there. It was his Vyasa Puja in 2005. And I asked him, you know, Gurudev, what's the best way for us to tackle our ego? Because, you know, he'd given me instructions before on tackling the ego and, you know, how to do it in different ways, like, you know, serve others, empower others by loving them. But it wasn't quite sinking in. And so I felt like I needed something more. And he said, look, if you don't do it for yourself, then the guru has to do it. And that's really painful because it's going to hurt. He said, so do what you can yourself. And so the first few weeks I arrived there, honestly, I tell you, he made me feel like his favorite disciple. He was so kind to me. But there was always this inkling inside of me, and yeah, but he's going to smash me. I think he's just trying to remove every doubt in my mind that I could ever have. That does this personality love me? Because to be smashed, you have to be confident that this person, you know, really loves you. Otherwise, your mind and ego just take it as some sort of abusive dialogue, right? And I still remember the day before he started getting really heavy with me. I think about 5-6 weeks had passed. We'd come back to Citi-Sakti, right? We were all together now, and you guys were there. And I remember having this dream just before I woke up. Gurudev came in the dream, and he said, Citi-Sakti, he said, you know, it's really nice doing lots of service. He said, but it's even better to be a nice Vaishnav. He said, so are you going to do that yourself or do you need some help? And then he laughed. And I thought, I've got a feeling he's already answered that because I can't change that in like 1 second. Literally that day and for the next 6 weeks, Ekavira Prabhu and Vajanila, you guys remember what it was like. He was literally chastising me to a point of tears. And there were lots of things to cry about that time. Some of the things to cry about were, you know, most powerful things were just the beauty of his consciousness and the way he was giving love and serving everybody else, even when he was in his most, you know, difficult and most painful moments. All he was worried about really was, how can I leave in such a way that serves the devotees? But despite that, you know, for him to invest that energy, and I remember, Ekavira Prabhu, you know, I remember one time when I was really upset, I think you said, you came and reassured me and you said, you know, he's doing it like this because he knows he doesn't have much time. And when you said that, it made me realize actually he doesn't have to spend any time or energy on me. He could just kind of leave me to be with my stuff and my nonsense. He didn't have to put any energy in that. So for me, at that point when I realized actually, you know what he's doing, he doesn't have to do. It's an act of love. So for me, that made a real difference. And then my attitude towards everything he would say, you know, I would take notes on it. And then when he went into Nirjan Bhajan, his mood changed. Then he went, as you know, very gentle and very soft and very introspective. So there were so many times, I mean, and the thing is, the chastisements came in different ways. The direct chastisement, the chastisement through the dreams, sometimes chastisement in front of all of you guys, but it was all things that are hard to hear, to do, but all the blocks, like ego, like lack of respect for others, and I like being, I remember one thing that really stood out, because my thing was, do lots of service for Gurudev. I used to thrive on it, but he smashed it. He said to me, you're so busy serving the Guru that you don't even know what the Guru wants. So it taught me a lot, and that's really stayed with me, that particular, that I shouldn't get so busy. I've got to serve Gurudev, this is for Gurudev, that I stop listening to what it is that the spiritual master wants, because what the spiritual master wants ultimately, Gurudev he wants us to fall in love with Krishna. If all our services are not helping, if my service is not helping me to surrender, if my service is not helping me to chant my rounds more deeply and to take shelter of the reading more deeply and to just let go and not even covet the service, then what's the point? you know. So for me, I've really that line kind of, and I know he's written a whole prayer about it in Beggar too, but when he told me, you know, you're so busy serving the spiritual master, you don't even know what the spiritual master wants. For me, that's like, even now I can just hear it ringing in my ears.
So interesting that, yeah, the memories that you have, because my memories of our Guru Maharaj with you is that he had so much affection for you, that he knew that he could depend on you, that he gave you so much responsibility because you were young, and the things that he was requesting of you required you to deal with others, which can be very difficult because everybody brings their minds. And he always, from what I could see, is that he was training you as the training, just similarly to what the training you received in your profession. He was training you with those principles spiritually. He was training you to apply them in a spiritual way with the people that you were going to need to nurture, which you were nurturing many people. And he knew that you would do that more and more. And so, you know, to whom much is given, much is expected, right? That's the saying. And I remember he coined a phrase also, not just because of that part of the relationship that you had with him, where he wanted you to be maybe attentive to more different things that maybe at times you weren't attentive to. I remember that phrase was, sometimes we serve the many and we forget the one. You know that phrase? And he has that phrase in one of his books, and I always remember that, because that's a lesson that was there for all of us, you know. And some of us, he emphasized that lesson a little bit more, and that's because he knew that those persons would be doing more. They had more. He was definitely giving them more responsibility, and like you said, he was empowering them more. So I am just really grateful that, you know, to have been able to have your association in all these different times. And I'm really like missing that I'm not able to have more connection with all the devotees in England and to learn more from you. I'm missing
I miss
that.
you guys too, you know. It's like, it's funny, it's been 15 years since we've actually spent significant period of time, but it feels like yesterday. You know, seriously, sitting here speaking to both of you, it's like, man, this could be like 15 years ago.
So I'm going to check in with Kishirani and with Ekavira if they anything that they would like to ask you or share with you. Or Kishiri, I'm going to check in with you.
Thank you so much for such a powerful, so many points that you made. It was really special. Special here to all of them. I even made a note. You know what, we start a lot about confidence, that you have such a confidence that you can do whatever, anything with a Krishna. I just wonder how, like, for those who didn't have a chance to meet Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, what would you recommend in terms of getting this self-confidence?
Do you know what, honestly, if you haven't met him, read his books. You know why? Because there's something, the way he writes as if he's speaking to us. You know, it's really, one thing that strikes me is when he writes, he actually addresses us. He says, beloved, are you going to join me? You know, and when he writes like this and you read this, you feel like, oh, he's here. Oh, he's talking to me. You know, we're often told that, okay, when we read Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's talking to us. When we read Srimad Bhagavatam, the sages are talking to us. When Gurudev writes, even the language he uses in the book, he's speaking to the reader. So developing confidence without knowing Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, but if you want to develop a relationship with him, read books, his books in particular. And you know what, which books he really focuses on, I guess, the psychological side of developing confidence is in the Spiritual Warrior 4 and 5, where he speaks about how to defeat the enemies of the mind and how to make the mind the best friend. So yeah, reading his books, I think, just because what his books do is they make spiritual life and our real self so manifest, because he speaks to us. He doesn't speak to this. And I found, because he speaks to us in a way that is not, he doesn't transgress this. He doesn't ignore this. He acknowledges it, but in such a way that we feel accepted. And by him really bringing out our true self through those books, we can have nothing but confidence, because we feel loved, we feel protected. And that's a root of confidence. When we feel loved and protected and like someone's got our back, then there's no lack of confidence, you know? That's my 2 cents worth anyway on that.
That's
Hey, thanks.
yes, Citi-Sakti. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I mean, I had a few questions that I was going to ask you, but as I was thinking of them, you were answering them one after the other. I was like, well, Gurudev is actually using her today. She's totally connected. So these memories go out to so many different people. And as Rajalila expressed, you are a very dear person to Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. If you were to express one quality that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj imbibed that had the most impact on you and would impact and assist others in their spiritual development, what would that quality be?
Love. He would empower people with love. He genuinely loved everyone, even those who hurt him. Even if people behaved in a way that could hurt him, he still loved them. And that has left me with such a profound impact, that it's had such a profound impact on me. I don't think I've ever met anyone else who's had it, you know, that level of selfless love to that degree. You know, when he speaks about compassion, the spiritual warrior too, that real compassion is when we're willing to take another person's place, to end their suffering. He was the embodiment of that. You know, that prayer he made the year before his departure showed that. And it was real love. It wasn't just sentimental and about making everybody feel good. He was willing to sacrifice even how other people felt about him to make sure the most loving thing happened. You know, he didn't get caught up in politics. He would say the right, like what the truth was. But if someone needed, he knew exactly when to apply soft love and exactly when to apply tough love. And he was an exemplary leader, a guru who walked his talk. But all of those were driven by, he had deep love, and that love was a spiritual love, a great love for Srila Prabhupada, and a great love for Krishna. And I feel humbled, and I actually feel a little embarrassed, because I don't, you guys are saying these things that, you know, yeah, I don't feel qualified to be his disciple. So I feel very grateful. I feel grateful that we have such a wonderful family, and I think it's amazing that you're doing this service. I'm glad we're coming to an end now.
Well, we just want to share how much we appreciate you. We really sincerely appreciate all of what you have done over the years, and that you continue to do now, because you're still so very active, doing so many things, teaching your patients, in ways that I know is enriching their lives spiritually. And you still do outreach in so many ways. You're just one of those, Gurudev always used to say that she's like a active pioneer type person, and you have that mood. And we feel so blessed, really, that we're part of this amazing family of Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, how he introduced us to Prabhupada and Prabhupada's family. So we thank you so much. And we thank you. Yeah.
Thanks. Hare Krishna. Hari
Yes. Hari. Thank you, Chidi. And we're going to have you back. Please come back again for our calm, confident, and courageous. Give us some tips on that.
Okay.
Thank you for all your services over the years again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Haribo.